Hello, guys. It is Taylor here with Tickets with Tay. It's been a while since the last episode. This is actually a re-record with Martyn today. We had some complications with the quality of the audio, but now we've wrapped that up and we're good to go. So Martyn is carrying a caution, is probably how you'll know him. Martyn, explain the name because that in itself is an interesting story.
I used to use it back in the day when I was in fantasy pool for football and stuff like that, just to kind of stand out. I always feel like I'm in a bit of trouble and one step away from danger. So I feel like I'm going through life with a yellow card and I got to watch what I'm doing.
Very interesting. Now, Martyn, you've got an incredible collection of different tickets and different other sports collectibles and memorabilia. Some really interesting ones, which I want you to show off later. But as someone who mainly collects or has a large collection of soccer tickets, and obviously being in Canada, what introduced you into soccer collecting, and what interests and excites you so much about it?
Yeah, it's definitely blown up in the last 3 or 4 years, for sure. As far as the avid collecting goes, I've always kept my tickets from all the events I've gone to in my sports life. A lot of that here in North America was baseball and hockey and basketball, football, the four major sports in North America, as they say. But I've always enjoyed watching football or footy. And so Toronto got a team 17, 18 years ago in the MLS, and I've been a season ticket holder in the supporters section in the South End Terrace since day one. So I've seen most of the games there in Toronto. So that kind of led into it. So obviously, a couple things have happened in the past 18 years are Messi and Ronaldo's career as well. So we've
Yeah.
all been blessed to enjoy that. And so that is kind of been a focus of my collection. As you said, I've collected many things and I try to keep it focused so that I don't stray too far away. And the two goats are definitely at the heart of my current collection.
Absolutely. So you mentioned you're a season ticket collector or holder, sorry.
Yeah.
What are some memories throughout time in Canadian soccer history that you've perhaps seen throughout your time?
Right. Well, obviously there wasn't a lot of great ones in the 80s and 90s. We qualified for the 86 World Cup in Mexico, which I don't remember. I was 10 that summer, so I wasn't really into it at that point. And then we just recently qualified for Qatar, and we're hosting in 3 years with Mexico and the United States. So that's exciting. But one thing I know, we talked about this on our first record. It happened to be, as far as milestones go, Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored his 500th professional goal for the LA Galaxy in Toronto at the South End, which is the end of the supporters. And like I said, I think Toronto was up 3-0 or 4-0 at the time. So
Yeah.
the goal didn't do us in, and we could all appreciate it. It's wonderful. If you Google Zlatan's 500th versus Toronto, it's he's in the box. He's got high service in, and he back heel karate kicks it out
Oh, wow.
from chest level past the keeper. It was a gorgeous goal. He got a standing ovation at the time, but that one definitely stands out. Toronto is the only Canadian team to ever win the MLS Cup. And that year we won the treble with the regular season, which is called the Supporter Shield. And we won our Canadian Cup as well. So we won all three trophies that year. Tons of great memories from our treble season of 2017.
Very interesting. It's interesting to hear a different perspective. All I ever talk about is the Premier League and maybe some mention of La Liga. So it's interesting to hear a different perspective, which is obviously very interesting. Now, you mentioned the hosting of the World Cup in 2026, I believe,
Yeah.
which will be a big moment, obviously, for fans of soccer across the world. But then also the interesting factor of it introducing collectibles within the soccer industry into that market. How do you think that will influence the market, the trends, and then obviously potentially a rise in popularity for collectibles within the soccer industry?
Yeah, it's going to be, as far as like the tickets or the passes, the admittance that we kind of focus on. It is at a really tricky part, right? With so much digital and North America. I don't know. I've been to some games in Europe, not a ton to really compare, but I feel like North America in some ways might even be as digital or more digital. So 2026, it is going to be hard. I know some of the world focus on North America is through Messi with being in Miami over the past year. And there does seem to still be those VIP lanyards, seem to be the
Yeah.
one last gasp for Miami admittance. And I know we talked about, because I work in sport television, I have some of my own passes, but I also work with people that work events. So I have some Miami passes from last year. But as far as the World Cup goes, it's going to be hard to know. I know the Qatar, there were some game day tickets, which survived amongst the plethora of the collector tickets or the souvenir tickets that came out the next year. So it's going to be hard to know what 2026 is like. I hope there's something for us to collect, though.
Yeah. Ronaldo and Messi, so that'll be and I do think opening out soccer into that market will definitely bring awareness to soccer collectibles. If we look at it now, the value change for a Michael Jordan debut compared to a Messi debut is absolutely wild. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of balances out, or at least comes a little bit closer with the awareness of the World Cup. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is. It is the chasm that we see. Or I spend a bit of time on the Boogers group on Facebook, and it's fairly North American, and so it's the Big Four. But honestly, even with college sports, that usurps hockey and maybe even basketball. Like college sports are so massive in the United States, not so much in Canada, but we're close enough that we really feel it. And yeah, it is tremendous the values that the Jordan and the LeBron can fetch. Canada's got their shout out with Gretzky. Like some of the early Gretzky stubs have a bit of value, but it is. I've always thought that as a footy fan, I've always thought the sport is criminally underrated here in North America. So of course the debuts and the milestones for Messi and Ronaldo and Pele and Maradona, the greats. I mean, I feel there's room in the market for those right now. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, I think that they're criminally undervalued right now in the market for sure.
Well, there's no doubting that Messi moving to the MLS has had a massive rise in interest in soccer collectibles, whether it's sports cards or tickets. There's no doubt in that. So it'll be interesting to follow that and see where it goes. But I think there's definitely so many opportunities in buying at this sort of time as a collector or as an investor to potentially grab things for a decent price. But hopefully also opens up the floodgates to a supply of new tickets and awareness of that. Because as the value comes up, people are more aware, news breaks out, and the floodgates open. So hopefully an opportunity to collect some tickets that haven't surfaced before, but also as an investor perspective, there's also hopefully some money to be made.
Of course, yeah, and it's funny in the Discord chat. I see you guys unearthing these gems from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and then of course on Boogers with a lot of the North American, it'll be someone looking for all of Dave Winfield's home runs, and all of a sudden the guy who lives in San Diego brings out his 77 stubs, and the guy who lives in New York brings out his 82 stubs, and the guy from Toronto brings out his 92 stubs. Like it's amazing the shoe boxes over here for those sports, and knowing that over in Europe the shoe boxes are the Johan Cruyff or the Diego Maradona in Italy, like all the different gems that are sitting, because those for soccer don't really exist over here. There's a little bit of the Pele and the Beckenbauer from the 70s, but there's not the same shoebox footy stubs over here in North America.
Well, there's not really the shoe boxes aren't really over here either. I think a lot of those sort of stuff weren't collected. The culture over here, maybe in Portugal and Spain, is a little bit different, but at least in the UK, we collected programs or sports cards. So really, to keep tickets is a little bit weird and unusual. So there isn't often a shoebox of 1,000 tickets, which you often see on Boogers. It's always, the odd spare one that was found in a program. Right. So the supply naturally is a lot lower. But yeah, whether those big collections will unfold, it seems that Lucas is the only one that's managed to kind of tap into that collection yet. But I know that he buys
I got a question for you, if it's okay, just while we're on the topic.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I know from the Messi valid for goal one from 2005, and I've been to maybe a half dozen or a dozen European football matches, so I know that they were further ahead or behind, depending on how you look on it, with the membership card. So for me, I've been a supporter in the supporter section of Toronto for all 18 years, and now it's all digital. But for the first 12 years, we were still mailed a box with 24 hard tickets in it. Whereas I know it like Manchester United, who I follow, or this or that, there may have been the card which you tap or you swipe to gain access to the ground every. So is that widespread in the 70s and 80s and 90s? Was it a
So,
physical card for the whole season, or was it paper tickets?
so often they would actually send these like flip pages, and they'll come
Okay.
through in pages, and you kind of rip and tear it off, and it's got your membership number at the bottom. But that doesn't relate to a specific game. It doesn't relate to a
Right.
specific event. It's not really dated. It's just a general pass that you bring alongside your season ticket to show
Okay.
that kind of you're activating it. So it isn't really relevant to a specific game, and that's why we don't have
Okay.
these big collections that you mentioned, because we weren't mailed these
Right.
collections. It was just bring your season ticket and kind of squeeze through. So yeah, it's definitely lacking that. So that, yeah, that's an interesting perspective.
I've seen those early 80 to mid 80 Barcelona tickets, and they look like a punch card for someone collecting a free coffee or a free sandwich at the
Yeah,
deli, right? Like game 34 is
exactly,
stamped, game 35 is stamped, and
exactly.
it's
Yeah, it's a
amazing the
loyalty
variety.
card.
Yeah, exactly.
What was I going to say? Yeah, it's interesting to see. I know there are some games in which you have a season ticket, but they'll also send you the physical ticket. We've seen that a
Okay.
few times, but often that mentions that on the ticket it will say, only valid if you have the season ticket. So
Ah,
to some regards, that's arguably a not valid for entry, because it's actually the season ticket that gets you in.
right,
So it
right.
is kind of an interesting realm to look at. But
Okay.
yeah, we don't have that culture so much of collecting vast amounts of things. So it makes it another dimension of difficulty. Um,
Yeah,
but I think maybe for movie subs, because I've kind of ventured into that realm now, people do
right.
tend to keep them, which is nice. And obviously, people do collect soccer, but not to the extent of what the collectors are now. If you think
Right.
about the supply and demand of collectors, it's still massively weighted towards a higher supply than it is. Sorry, a higher demand than it is supply,
Of course, of
of
course.
course. But yeah, I think in stubs for movies, it's a little bit more balanced, which gives the opportunity to pick up things at a fair price.
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough.
What was then the thing that kind of the tipping point that got you into ticket collecting? Because I know you've collected things in the past. What was it that was tickets over anything else?
Right. So with the Blue Jays, Major League Baseball, Toronto Blue Jays, I always, through the 90s and 2000s, would collect their playoff tickets just as a memory. Like they were my favorite team, and I've collected a bunch of stuff for the Blue Jays as well. But I think they made it to 7 or 8 or 9 playoffs over their 40 years. So it's a small sample size, but it's interesting and easy to collect. So I'd be scanning eBay for the past 20 years looking for, I think they've played in the whole lot, maybe 50 postseason games in
Okay.
50 years. So, and I would always look for the playoff tickets, but I was looking for the unused to make it a bit more difficult for myself, because back in the 80s and the 90s, they weren't scanning, they were tearing. So
Yeah,
if you could
exactly.
find a playoff ticket that was untorn, it was much more difficult. And so that was one of the collections that would keep me busy, always checking, trying to find. So I had the full set up until, and them not making the playoffs over a 15-year span did make it easier on my collection to finish.
Yeah.
But 2015, 2016, they got back into the playoffs again. And then we were in the digital era where there wasn't quite as many hard tickets.
Was
As
that a
far as
giving up point for you, or was that just more drive to find the rarer ones?
I would say now in the 2020s, it's at a give up point. Like I wouldn't say no, but they're just so infrequently printed. I know Chris Wood from Boogers he used to work at the stadium 20, 30 years ago in Toronto. And actually it's a funny thing. There's a huge cachet of World Series tickets from 92, 93, and they're from the luxury restaurant. And
Yeah.
so people would pay to get in, but they wouldn't necessarily use their ticket. So he found them on cleanout day. So there's a whole bunch in North America of the 92, 93 playoffs, and we all have these wonderful tickets, and we all can say thanks to Chris for that. But in 16 and 15, it was hard to find, but the one story I had was I was looking for a ticket to actually go watch the game, and I was on StubHub, which is our electronic secondary site, and it was electronic, but there was one listing for a hard ticket. And I thought, that's interesting. I'm going to pay the $100 and buy this ticket to go to the game. And sure enough, it was FedExed overnight and it arrived, and it was a hard ticket to that day's game. And it was an employee from a Major League Baseball team, and it had come from the league office. And so the league office actually produced hard tickets to send out a small amount to each of the teams as a thank you or whatever. And this person was in a city that wasn't Toronto, couldn't use them, so made a bit of money, sold them, but it was a hard ticket. And he said,
Did you attend that event?
and I went to the event, and he said, here's tickets for tomorrow's as well, because I can't use it. Go enjoy your Blue Jays. And so I went to the game, and it was wonderful, and I had the ticket to show for it. But then I also knew what section in the stadium was allocated to head office MLB.
Yeah.
So every other game I would go to with my electronic ticket, I would walk up to that section, and I would just say to the section, $20 for your ticket stub. And I ended up getting ticket stubs to many of those games. I've got one of the biggest games in Toronto history is the Jose Bautista backflip. And there's not many hard tickets out there. Maybe there was 100 produced. I don't know how many were collected, but I was able to get one because I knew what section was the only section holding hard tickets. So
that's something for other collectors to kind of draw lessons from when there are stadiums where it's only VIP or small sections of VIP, to kind of hang around those areas. And that's your best bet, asking around, because I know a lot of people are doing that now. They are just standing outside the stadium and asking, do you have your physical ticket? Can you sell it to me? Can I have it? So pinpointing those locations where potentially they are more likely, whether it be away stands or, as you say, specific areas in the stadium, that is a great tip to anyone trying to still collect physical tickets. Now, I wanted to move on to your collection now with predominantly Messi and Ronaldo.
Yes.
I'm right in saying. What are your best pickups? Potentially three from each player.
Three. Okay, so I the biggest day I had. Try not to rattle the table here. The biggest day I had was Lucas related, of course, and it was maybe about a year ago. I think it was last January, February. But I was able to get the Argentina debut and the Argentina goal number 1, which was an incredibly exciting day for me. I wasn't sure that I would ever be able to find either, so to get both on the same day was very, very special for me. With Ronaldo, I'm just kind of getting into the early stages of the Portuguese days before United. And so I do have the pro debut. They have,
what grade is that? Sorry, because I love this ticket so much. I think it's pretty affordable now.
Yeah, I definitely got this off Boogers, and I forget who it was. It was one of the regulars, but the one that I have one order at PSA right now. I have 6 cards being graded, or 6 tickets being graded, and the one that I'm most excited for is goal 1 and 2. And it's a full. It's an untorn. It's an unused full, and that came from Australia, from the brothers down under. And so it's off being graded right now, and it went into assembly the first week of January, so it's been in assembly for 8 weeks or 9 weeks now. So
they're probably trying to find a slab big enough for the full ticket.
Yeah, so
they're rambling around in the back office trying to find something big enough.
That's right. So I'm excited to get that back, to have the pro debut and the pro goal 1 and 2, because I mean the greatest goal scorer of all time, maybe not the greatest player, we can have that debate, but certainly the greatest goal scorer in the most popular sport on earth, to have goal 1 and 2 and to have the first graded complete ticket. I can't wait to get that back.
Would that be a pop 1 then in full?
I believe so. Yeah, I don't believe there's any full goal 1 and 2 Ronaldos. So I'm excited to get that back safely in the collection. And then about a month ago, I did a deal with Stephen Shelley, and so I have preseason debut and preseason goal 1 in the post. So I check the mailbox daily to see when that's coming in. So that'll kind of give me not the 4 biggest Ronaldo, but the starting stones of the first game, first goal, first regular season game, first regular season goal. And then, and I'll say this one just because it came in a couple weeks ago. I was excited. I like the debuts, but milestones are big for me. And we had a debate on Discord last week with the Messi Alves trophies, and is it 44? Is it 43? What counts? What doesn't? And I love those conversations because they'll never go away. And so this is the Pele goal 1000 I got. And so I know it's not official 1000 goals; it includes the friendlies. But just to have the unofficial 1000 is super special for me
I think it's
because
widely respected as still 1,000 goals. I know it's in is
absolutely
it
right. Well, I don't often. I think the only friendly tabulation I have, and this is kind of forced. I did a deal about 2 years ago with, and I'm not going to be able to pull his name, but he's known. He might be watching this. He's in the community, and actually, he's still listed it on eBay now. I think he has a bunch of them. But the whole 16 run of Messi at Barcelona, the membership card, all 16 years,
yeah.
because there was a few that I wanted. And if there's a football special coming up at PSA, I may put in the lot. And so I went through for the 16 to try to find, and some of the milestones are very obvious, of the first hat trick, or the first Ballon d'Or, or the 73 goal season for Barcelona. It was the Copa del Rey was the 73rd goal, but the 50th league goal was a home match when he scored
Okay.
50 in league play. That was a home match, so that's a valid 4. One of them was valid for, it was his 370th goal for Barcelona, which set the record, including friendlies. And I wasn't aware of that. I was just looking for something that happened in a home match in that season, and that
Yeah.
seemed to be. But as far as splitting the focus, a big one is pro versus club. So
Exactly.
as I collect the Messi milestones, and as I collect the Ronaldo milestones, there kind of appears to be sort of 3. It's the pro, which includes international. It's the club, which doesn't include international. And then 3 nights ago in Miami, it's the league total. So Messi got goal 499 and 500 in his league career. And
Okay.
so that's kind of a third one. And
Which one
one thing that
stands
was,
out for you? Which stands
sorry,
out as the grail?
I like the pro. I like folding in the international goals as well. So I have one. Oh no, one is this one is raw, and it's Messi's all-time goals and assists, 1127. So this is with Argentina and with club goals
And
and assists.
friendlies?
No, not friendlies.
Okay.
Not friendlies.
This for me,
Friendlies international, because those count.
of course.
Friendlies
Yeah,
international,
yeah, yeah.
but club friendlies, no. So
This is what stands out for me is the top of that pyramid.
this
So
is the
tell me about it.
professional 1127, and it was PSG versus Maccabi Haifa. I mispronounced that. I apologize.
Yeah.
The Israeli side, and it was when he passed Pele. 1127 professional goals and assists, which for me is a massive landmark. One of the 6, as I said, I have 6 cards or 6 tickets at PSA. One of them is and that is just the club goals and assists,
Okay.
but not friendlies. Club goal and assists, 1004, and that was when he passed Pele for the all-time lead on that ladder. So taking the Argentina or the Brazil contributions out, and then the Ronaldo similarly is the 110th goal for Portugal, which
Yeah.
broke the all-time record for international goals, and then goal 806 for Ronaldo, which passed the Hungarian Bican. I don't hear it, I read it. So Bican, however that's pronounced, but
Okay.
806 is the professional goal, including international. So 806 was at the time the record. I think he's at 877 now after going goalless this week. So those 2 tickets were very special because it's when they got to the top of that ladder.
Absolutely, yeah, I completely agree. So very interesting. You are the
Yeah.
numbers guy. I think I was mentioning our first attempt at the podcast to another friend in the community, and I was saying he is so well versed in the numbers. Every record or 100th pro goal, 200th pro goal, or 300th international appearance, every milestone you kind of got covered, which is so interesting because at the moment, I think it is just so debut focused. So it's nice to get this different perspective. And as we kind of collect these debuts, it's nice to kind of hone in on the specific players and pull out these key moments. So I think you've kind of given everyone listening some sort of education into the different three brackets in which you can collect.
And speaking of which, Cristiano Ronaldo is on 700. I know that the tickets aren't coming out of Saudi Arabia, but Ronaldo is on 749 club goals.
Okay.
So he's at 877 professional, but he's on 749 club goals. So his next one will be his 750th club goal. So with those, I started at the top and kind of worked back, like to get the 800th Ronaldo and to get 700 Ronaldo, 700 Messi, 600 Ronaldo. And some of Messi's have actually been pretty spectacular. The famous winner at the death in the derby versus Real Madrid, where he held up, I think it was a hat trick, and he held up his jersey at the end. That was, it was 500. I think it was club 500. And then his club 600 was in the Champions League versus Liverpool. It was a free kick. It was a worldie. It was leg one before they blew it to Liverpool in leg two of the semi. But leg one of the semi, I believe that was club 600. So some of his milestones that I've been able to collect have actually been very memorable
Fantastic goals
unto themselves.
I think that definitely adds another dimension to it. So
Yeah.
those that are kind of inspired by these stories that you tell about milestones, what is the clear-cut milestone? Is it 250, 500, 750, 1,000? Is it 100, 200, 300, 400? What sort of milestones do you decide to collect, and how do the values kind of differ in between those?
I don't think. I mean, there's some value. It's like you said. It's not the debut value, right? Or that definitely seems to be the benchmark. For me, it is personal. Like I think a lot of people out there would rather have Ronaldo's first goal for Real Madrid, or his first goal for Juventus, or his, the audition. The audition's pretty special as a United supporter,
Definitely.
but I know that is probably where more people's focus is. So with focus comes value. For me, the milestones of the goal number 500, goal number 600, goal number 700, I really appreciate those. I guess more as a stats person. But for me, number one is the attaining. So 806 for Ronaldo is above 800 because that's where he became the all-time.
Yeah.
Or goal 110 for Portugal is more than 100 for me because that's where he became the number one. But the round numbers are special as far as just a collecting goal. And like I said, I try to keep it a bit more focused. So I've branched out a little bit. Like I got Erling Haaland Champions League goal 1, 2, 3 hat trick because I believe at the end of the day, he'll probably get 141st Champions League goal, and he will probably get to the top of that ladder. I tried
Well,
to
he's
get...
not far off already, and he's a youngster.
Exactly. And it'll be interesting to see what the new format does, whether it has more dead rubber matches where he might be able to pot a few against teams from the fourth bowl. Or a little bit of Mbappe with France. So I've stayed away from his club career, but because certainly he'll get a 17th World Cup goal, and certainly he'll get to the top of that ladder. So I've dabbled a bit in his French number ones, so that when he gets his 17th World Cup goal, so I've branched out a little that way, but it's a personal collection for sure, just like all of ours are. And it's not necessarily based on value. It's more based on interests for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is kind of a North American perspective. You do love, or that kind of place in the world does love to collect sets, and they want every single one of certain things. In the EU, we're mainly just debuts, first goals, first this, first that. So it's interesting to get this perspective, and it definitely excites me to kind of branch out. And I know in our first episode, I mentioned the idea of having every single Messi goal. Now, as mad as that sounds, it would be a fun venture, but also I feel like it would get to the last few, and I'd be willing to throw stupid money at it just to get it done. So that knowledge and understanding of how I would be positioned doesn't really excite me, and I've seen it on boogers numerous times where people are like, I just need these 4 games. I'll pay whatever. If you can help me find it, I'll give
Yeah.
you $100, and I don't want
Yeah.
to be in that situation. So
Yeah, I think I overpaid by 50 or 75 last month. I know you were in on it. The Messi goal versus Iran, or was it Bosnia? It was Bosnia, I think, and it was of his 13 World Cup goals. It was the only one I didn't have, so I
okay,
wanted to get all of Messi's World Cup goals, and the Bosnia rarely comes up. So there was a few of us in on it, and it bounced up. So I think I was low 200s, 225 or something, which is
yeah,
probably more than it'll ever fetch. But for me, as you
you
said,
needed it.
I needed it to finish off the collection. So the the collection got the better of me, but I knew it at the time. I wasn't doing it for an investment. It was to finish off the Messi World Cup goal collection.
Yeah, and I think Alexander's on that same venture. I think he collected every single Pele World Cup goal.
Oh
So it
wow!
definitely is becoming a popular thing. And even
Yeah.
in having these conversations, interestingly, has seen kind of like spikes in interest on eBay when you look. So me and Ben, only Fools and Horsemen, he mentioned about
Yes.
matchups and really focused on that. And then seemingly like a few weeks after, the prices for matchups kind of shot up. So even just having these conversations does spike interest, which I think is important. The hobby can be hit at any angle.
Yeah.
So kind of raising awareness of new angles is also important because otherwise debuts have all the spotlight and it kind of
Yeah.
takes away from the overall hobby and also just makes things exciting, especially when the supply on some stuff, especially debuts, is so low.
And to that, I know we talked about this the first time, and it's important for me to get it out. And I'll try to be brief, but it really is the genesis of this collection and the other collections with baseball. Like behind me, you can see the Blue Jays have won 2 World Series trophies, and I actually have front office World Series trophies from both, and actually front office World Series rings from Tiffany's for '92 and '93, which I got years apart.
Martyn, you're going to have to show them again. I think everyone
Oh
deserves to
yeah,
see them
it's
and explain the stories behind them because I know it's not tickets, but there's absolutely a space on this platform to share other collectibles. So
well,
tell us about these rings.
and I got them, I think, 4 or 5 years apart, and they were from different sellers on eBay, but it's the same employee. So she must have liquidated at some point, moved on from her career in baseball, and so they were in 2 different collections, and 5 or 6. So I got the one, and it was an amazing pickup for me, and I was over the moon. And then years later, always searching for the other one because when a team has 2 championships. It's pretty easy to focus on, well, I have 50% of it now. I'd like to collect and finish it off. And so to find it was over the moon. And then for it to be the same employee's name engraved on the side was like, this is an actual set. With the trophies, they're from 2 different locations, but they went to 2 different places. One is from the estate of a minor league affiliate in baseball. You have kind of like an academy. You have a different steps down the ladder, and so one of the different tiers of the academy, they were awarded a trophy as a celebration being part of the family. And so when the owner passed away, it was put up on Leland's or
Yeah,
Sotheby's, one or the other.
Leland's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I was able to grab it from there. But so I have the reason why I enjoy tickets, and I know that the world does not agree with me, and the world does not agree with us. But the reason why I put tickets so high above cards, and the reason why I've collected trophies, and the reason why I have a game used jersey of every single version the Blue Jays have ever worn. I have all 51 jerseys that the Blue Jays have ever worn, and that includes about 24 single-use jerseys that they've worn for a celebration. And so there's only 25 of them available, and I
full
have
match
one.
war.
Yeah, it's a one-off, and there's 25 on Earth, and I have one of the 25 from every single occurrence. But the reason I do that is because they weren't created to be collected. There's something very genuine about it. They were created, whether it's a trophy or a ring or a ticket or a jersey, they were created, or even a seat from the stadium. I had a couple seats from stadiums. They were created for a very authentic reason. And that's why I love collecting them, because they have a story behind them, but also the quantity is controlled. Like even everyone, anyone who's a serious Messi collector probably has his preseason debut because it was a brand new stadium in Porto, right? So
Yep.
everyone kept their ticket not for Messi, but because it was the first game at the stadium. And so that's why there's so many out there. So it may be a 200 or 300 euro ticket, but it's because there was only 70,000 or 60,000 made. Whereas tickets, I've never got too deep into tickets because
You mean
being in
cards,
my
right?
well, sorry, in cards. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction. I've
No
never been
worries.
too big into cards because my high school age was 89 to 93, and we know what happened to cards, or
Junk
if
wax,
you're
yeah.
old as me, right? And so it was electric, and it was great, and it was exciting, and we went from tops to 6 different Fleer and Donruss and Upper Deck and all the premium, and it was exciting, but it was also artificial. And oh, well, everyone wants the 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card on Upper Deck because it's the first card of the first set and it's this generational player. But then we found out 20 years later, they went back and pressed a second set and a third set, and they just kept on churning it out. So, not to dump on cards because I know they're super valuable and a lot of people take a lot of joy from it. But what makes tickets beautiful for me is that they weren't created to be collected. And so when I've mentioned the Erling Haaland Champions League 1, 2, and 3 hat trick. I got it from Lucas for $100 raw, and I got it the day before my first PSA submission, and I threw it in, and it's a 1 all day, and I don't have it to show to you, but there's a giant boot stamp on the back of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that doesn't bother me. It's history. Someone picked that up off the ground because they wanted to remember, this debut. And I know that, like I said, I don't do a lot of it for value, and I know a PSA 3 has more value than 1. And when I got my Hand of God back and it was a PSA 3, I was over the moon. But
Wow.
PSA 1s have such a welcome part of my collection because they weren't meant to be protected from Jump Street. They were folded and put in a pocket, or as you said, how many of these European programs are flipped open and there's the ticket stub on the middle. That the story is part of the fun for me. So I'll take a 1 in
Absolutely.
my collection the same way I'll take a 3 or a 5 or a 7.
Absolutely. And I think you're spot on with that because it's always those things that you think, and there's another point I want to mention after it. It's always those things that you think, who would have kept that? Who on earth would have thought to kept that? Whether it's the first ever sealed iPhone or whether it's the first Mario game or whatever. It's like, why would you keep that? It doesn't make sense to keep it. It's
Right.
almost illogical in many ways that it should be in that state. And even with tickets, it's almost like strange to keep it. And that naturally just kind of restricts the supply of it, and definitely the condition of it. When people know that it has value, they preserve it, they protect it. And there's something nice about tickets where you very rarely see something above a PSA 6.
Well, and I'd like you to speak to this quickly because I know you have more knowledge than I do. But the Messi Argentina goal 1 Modric debut, I remember Lucas telling me it was, I think, played in Switzerland, and so it was a neutral ground, and so there weren't a ton of Messi like there weren't a ton of Argentina or Croatian supporters there, and
Yep.
so the few of these tickets that have survived are almost by happenstance.
Exactly, and it is those nuances and understandings within the industry that can definitely help, especially at the beginning, because I would say we're still in the genesis of soccer ticket collecting. It's understanding those nuances to kind of predict the value of certain things. Because with the boxing match, it was Rumble in the Jungle. It
Oh
was
yeah,
played fought over in Africa in a relatively small event. So the people there aren't likely to keep it, and the tickets that have been found are often from tourists or news reporters that have kind of flown back to America or the UK. So
right.
understanding these different nuances definitely has if you can predict it, an influence on the value. So yeah, spot on with
Yeah.
that about the Messi and Modric goal. Yeah, I think there is so many different things going on. There's so many avenues you can tackle. That story you say about the foot stand, when I first heard that, I found it so interesting because it's absolutely true. And I don't think really with ticket collecting the condition matters too much, and that's why it is so cool. But you mentioned the Hand of God and that getting PSA 3. There is obviously something exciting about getting a high grade because I think as more people collect, it's a great way to differentiate. Tell us the story of that Hand of God ticket.
So it was. I believe no, it was. It was so it's the same gentleman that lists those 16 seasons passes of Barcelona,
Okay.
and it was early on. It was maybe my second or third purchase, of graded level tickets. in football, and he was very patient with me and answered all my questions, and he showed me pictures of. I wish I could pull his name, but I can't.
Yeah.
Like for the Mexico '86 tickets, the stay away from the green seat numbers because they've come from, I believe it, the
Red
green
seat
or the
numbers.
red.
Yeah,
Yeah,
red you've got to stay away from.
right, exactly. Yes. So he was explaining all of this to me, and so I got the full. I believe it was the full run of Azteca. It was the seven Azteca tickets, which included the Argentina semi or quarter with the hand of God and the
Yeah.
goal of the century, the semi with a brace from Maradona, and then the final, his only World Cup. But they were raw, and it was the first time I'd bought raw at that level. But like I said, he took the time and he put me at ease, and so I did that. So that was my first ever submission to PSA. It was after the 2022 World Cup, and
Yeah.
I had 12 tickets from the World Cup. I had all 7 Argentina, which I wanted. I had all 3 Canada, which I needed, and then
Yeah.
I had Ronaldo opening up the male 5 World Cup time scorer with his first goal, joining Marta, I believe, and maybe even Christine Sinclair from Canada, but the first male to ever score at 5 different World Cups. And then I actually got his last ticket because at the time there was some thought that he may not play in 2026, although now I wouldn't bet against him or Messi. But anyway, so I had those 12 Qatar tickets, and I had these 3 Mexico tickets that I wanted to put in, and a couple bits and bobs. But it was my first submission, and I knew it was going to take 8 months, but I don't think my heart was ready for it to take 8 months. So when they came back, and I got the whole string of all 7 Argentina games, and my 3 Canada Qatar tickets with specialized flips. I remember Steve on Boogers taking time, and mathematically I couldn't figure it out because I'm fairly new, and I understand pop reports, and I understand that with cards there's no specialized flips. The card is the card, and so you can
Absolutely.
search the pop report. But for tickets, if I'm searching the pop report but I want something different on it, I still don't know how they keep it together when it's a completely different. They clearly have their system, and I'm glad they do it. But like for the second game of Canada versus Croatia, Alphonso Davies scored the first World Cup goal in Canada history. We played in '86 and didn't score a goal. We took it to Belgium in the opening match, but missed a penalty and lost 1-0. So that second game against Croatia, the opening minutes, when Alphonso Davies, our greatest player, scores a goal to go up 1-0, not was it only our first lead in World Cup history, but it was the first goal and will always be the first Canadian goal in World Cup history. And the flip was like the date and the name of the stadium. And I'm like, that does not do the ticket justice.
Yeah,
So anyways, I was
absolutely.
able to get all my custom flips, which I was thrilled about. So I got them back, and it was my first submission, but I couldn't have been happier. And to get the 3 on the hand of God goal, to be honest with you, I was glad to get the 3, but because it was the first high-end raw ticket I'd ever bought in my life, I was just glad to not get back a do not slab notification.
Yeah.
I was glad it was legit, and I was
Well, on that
thrilled to have
note,
it.
then, did it have the staple holes? Because that is obviously a common thing. And rarely will it get a PSA 3 unless it's absolutely mint if it has the
So
staple holes.
I don't know what my iPhone's going to do for you here. There's no staple holes on this. I see the glare a bit, but it's a
Beautiful.
pretty clean ticket. The brace in the semifinal is a second member of the boot club. It's got the
Is it?
boot right.
It is a stub, right?
It
Yeah.
is they are
Stub.
stubs. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they are stubs, and it's got the boot right in the middle of it, which gets it into the 1 club, and then the final one up to 1.5. So
Beautiful. The final was fantastic.
it was good to have them, but of the 3, to get the highest grade on the hand of God was great. Like for instance, the Messi 7. I guess he only scored in 6 of them, but the Argentina 7 tickets from Qatar. I actually the final. I won't show all 7, but there actually is a 10 in there, and I believe it's my only 10. And it is the quarterfinal versus the Netherlands, and it's my only 10 unused. So that was a great game to get that in. But for the final, to get an 8,
Yeah, wow.
I was absolutely thrilled. Like, if you're going to get a big number, it might as well be a big game. So to get
Absolutely.
an 8 for probably the most exciting World Cup final of all time was special for sure.
Oh, we've got my thing full. Yeah, that final was magical. I think it was joint most goals scored as well, if I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
mistaken, or joint second most goals scored, or something along those lines. So it kind of does tackle everything that you can imagine. Messi winning it, his first one. There's everything could be on the flip. Mbappe hat trick in a World Cup final.
Oh my.
Even it
So
being a World Cup final alone is kind of
I would, I
worth
would,
mentioning.
I would admit to you, and I'm not seasoned enough to fix this. Maybe in a year or two, I will. It's the only error on my flip, and I caught it and I corrected it, and they sent it back to me as a verification, and it was all correct. And then when I got it in the mail, so I went for something very specific because I was collecting all the Messi goals.
Is this on the final one? Sorry.
It's on the final one. Yeah, there's a typo on the final.
Let's
Uh,
have a look at that.
so I got to send it back, but I got to pick the right time to do it. So I had the Argentina France 3-3 shootout 4-2 Messi World Cup. I didn't think 20 years from now there was ever going to be any debate about whether this was his World Cup. Like, it's famous enough that it kind of stands on its own. So I asked for Mbappe World Cup goal 10 to 12 because I wanted those to be on there because I believe someday he will get to 17. So I
Yeah,
wanted this to be 10 to 12. And for Messi, because I was collecting them all, I put Messi goal 12 and 13 because I thought it might be his final goals. Anyways, they labeled it as Messi goal 11 and 12. Whoever was typing that day took it and just typed it. So it's his goal 12 and 13 is listed as Messi's goal 11 and 12 instead of 12 and 13. So I think I will have to get that corrected at some point, but it's
yeah,
still great to have an 8. And at the end of the day, it's an authentic ticket. It's not a reproduction from the following spring.
yeah,
It's got the 2 lines of text at the bottom.
yeah,
And I will tell, and I'd love to hear a little bit from you on that topic too, because you're a bit of a longer collector than I am. I know that in past Euros and World Cups, they've put a line saying like reproduction or souvenir. And so when that didn't, I was, because I had 12 tickets at PSA, but I knew the reproductions were coming in the spring. I was so worried that they were going to be identical. And I was
yeah,
glad when there was actually a physical tell that my mom wouldn't recognize, but
yeah.
anyone in the collecting world knows to look for it.
There was definitely a period in time in which those people that were getting them reprinted were making a lot of money because they were selling them for the same price.
Yeah.
I was quite quick to kind of clock on, but it wasn't an easy one, like you say, because it still had the ID tag actually in the ticket. If you put it up to the light, you can still see that. So in many ways, it is a real ticket. I actually suspect that they just had leftover stock that they wanted to kind of
Oh,
maybe
okay.
monetize on. I think they might have even been charging a $5 or $10 to kind of have it printed, and they thought, you know what, we've got leftover stock. Maybe it wasn't part of the initial plan. Here's a way that we can monetize on the stock. So potentially it was that, or potentially it was planned the whole time. We will never really know.
I had a bunch of Canadian friends that went over to the Qatar because it was our first one in 35 years or 36 years, and they were all given like a questionnaire at the end, and anyone who attended any game could purchase their ticket for that game
Yeah,
after the fact, and it would be sent months later. So I believe they've probably gone to make it as authentic as possible. But I think they must have been created after because they only created the ones that were purchased, but they created exactly what was. So I went to a baseball game at the Field of Dreams. I won't get too deep into baseball, but I went to a game, a Major League Baseball game, in a cornfield in Iowa in the middle of the pandemic, and it was like $1,000 game because it was like a really exclusive game to get to, and I did it. And I like to collect tickets from my special games. There was almost no hard tickets to that game, but for $10, you could order your ticket
yeah,
afterwards. And there are slight differences. You can tell the difference between the $1,000
which is
authentics,
good, which is definitely
which is
good.
good. You want that as a collector, but it was exactly my seat and my row and my chair that I sat
That's
in.
cool.
And I believe the same is for the Qatars. I think they were ordered up after it was over, and so you could get your actual seat.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it across any other World Cups with commemorative. I think this might be the first year, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Okay.
But there are obviously many events throughout time where they specifically mention, commemorative ticket, or often the seat numbers are identical. So that's
Right.
another way to spot for it.
Yes, of
I think
course.
some throughout time have used the date as the seat number, like in a clever way. So that's one way
Oh.
of identifying it.
Yes, and I think even for North American sports, I can't pull an exact example, but like a player's 1,000th game or what, like they'll work it, or like I think Kobe Bryant might have had like on his last game, the commemorative ticket might have been like his 2 jersey numbers as like the row in the seat that he wore. I believe something like that.
Amazing. Well, I've got 6% battery on this
Okay,
stream. So I want to ask you some quick fire questions so we
I
can
will be
really get
quick.
as much value out from the beginning. If we're
Cheers.
looking at like a player like Messi or Ronaldo, let's go with either of those two. What are the top 3 tickets you would collect? Is it, in fact, tell me. I don't want
Okay,
to
so
hit anything else.
for me, if I could pick 3, and not specifically because of their rarity, but just as a general rule,
Absolutely, yeah.
first game, first goal, and I would say last goal. If you gave me a fourth, I would say last game. But if you only gave
Yeah.
me 3, I would take the last goal over the last game.
For someone like Maradona, then, with the hand of God squeezing that top 3 as a
Oh,
memory.
absolutely, absolutely. Because of they were easier to find. I have Pele's first World Cup win because I believe he was the youngest, but obviously as the record holder of 3, how it started is the first. And then I have his third from Mexico because
Yeah.
that was the moment he became the person with the most. So the first and the third. Would I like the second? Sure, I would like the second because that's the complete set. But if he had 4, if he had 5, I would go for the first and the last.
Yeah.
That's my
Got
preference.
you. Got
Yeah.
you. Let's go with some more quick fire tickets then. Would you rather have a mint stub or a damaged full?
Oh, I would go mint stub. I would go mint
Yep.
stub because I knew that I know for sure it was at the ground that day, and value is value. I'm going to want more money than less money. But as far
Yeah.
as looking at it, I think a gorgeous looking ticket that was at the ground as opposed to maybe a beaten up one that didn't make the trip. I'd take the mint stub.
Considering then that Messi's last game is likely to be probably an e-ticket and very low in pop, would you rather this or his first friendly debut? So first or last?
Last for sure. Last.
Okay.
It breaks my heart that Ronaldo, like all the things Ronaldo and Messi are doing now, and there's not like I don't need there to be 40,000, but if there were just a couple hundred out there for us, you know what I mean? Like I'd
Yeah,
pay $50 or $100 for
for sure.
Ronaldo's next goal. Like it's 750. I'd pay $50 for that just to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me come with some more quick fire questions then. Would you rather a mint pass or a footprint ticket?
The mint passes are very nice. Like the graphic design they do with them, they are very good looking. So and they really jump out of a collection. So nothing against the foot stamp, but yeah, I would take a mint pass for sure.
Would you rather a PSA 7 media ticket or a PSA 2 stadium ticket?
I would do the PSA 2 stadium. Now, again, like I said to you, I have some media by virtue of it's the only way I can get some of those Miami memories, and they won't be graded because they're media and they're handwritten on the day. But I still have them in my collection to remember it. But yeah, no, a proper PSA 2 in the stands, I would take for sure.
And if they were to ever surface, would you rather the Maradona or Pele debut?
Oh my God. I would take Pele for sure. I think
Yeah.
just from distance, I think a greater player personally for me, and just a greater distance from today. It's harder to find
Yeah,
and
makes
more
sense.
romantic, and those
Then
tickets are so
let me
beautiful.
throw a spanner in the works then. The supply of the Maradona is 2 and the Pele is 7.
7, okay. I'll still take the Pele. If you got a couple hundred, maybe I would go for the Maradona. But no, 7, I'm still in on Pele.
Very nice. Now let's go with something a bit more different. Here we go. Messi's pro debut
Yeah.
or Messi's friendly debut with an auto.
I think I'm supposed to say with an auto. I am not an autograph person per se. I don't collect a lot of autographs, but a Messi autograph is something really special. So I'll go with the preseason debut auto.
Yeah. Let's go with
I see you flashing. I don't know if you're under 6%.
Sorry,
I see you flashing.
2% now.
Okay.
Let's go with, if the supply was equal, would you go with a Ronaldo or Messi pro debut?
I'm United, and I love Ronaldo, and Ronaldo's going to finish with more goals, but I'm a Messi guy. In that conversation, I'm a Messi guy.
I thought I'd catch you out there, but now that you're kind of a ticket collector, specifically in soccer, is there any tickets outside soccer that you'd rather over a soccer ticket?
No, no. I mean, there's moments in baseball and hockey that I remember watching, and they're special to me. Like '72 Hockey Summit Series, Canada beating Russia was like a national treasure here in Canada. But no, I like the football world that I'm collecting in, and it's pretty special for sure.
Very good. I think I've tackled every question. Let's go with there's one. They're assuming they're the same supply and the same shape. Would you rather the one with the fold in it or the one with the staple hole in it? Assuming they get the same grade.
Oh, either for me. Yeah, I'm fine with
There's
There's no preference.
You've got to pick one. They're
Okay,
they're both.
I'll take the staple hole. I'll take the staple hole.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Martyn, thank you so much for your time. We're definitely going to have to revisit an episode 2 an episode 3, because I know there was stuff that we spoke about in the first episode that hasn't
Yes.
been visited now. And I know your collection is growing by the day.
It
I know
is.
you've got that order from Shellbinds from Stephen
Yes.
coming soon. So I'm sure you want to show them off too. So we'll definitely have to revisit this. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.